So let me give everybody a little bit of history. Back, I think it was 2008. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
So when we started off, I was just doing industrial, commercial type of lubricant sales. So I would go into a plant and I would look through what their machinery was and study it for maybe a couple, 5, 6, 7 hours, and then say, okay, here's what we could do to fix this or to make it work more efficiently. We need to change the weight of the hydraulic fluid, or we need to use a different compressor fluid, or something. So we started selling a few bottles. When I say a few bottles, maybe one every 3 days or 4 days. We started advertising on WLW. And then they had a salesman down there. We used to call him Squirrel, and because he's, I don't know why. Do you know where you got that name from?
Because he looks kind of like a squirrel a little bit.
So he
just celebrated his 75th birthday, by the way.
Yeah,
he did. Yes.
Yeah, he's a really good guy. So he calls me up. He says, do you want to re-up your advertising contract? I said, man, this doesn't seem to be working. I'm running out of money, and nobody seems to be buying the product. So he said, maybe if you just let me go on the radio and talk about it, we can explain how it works. So I go down. He says, I'll give you 10 minutes on Steve's show. I go down, and I am as nervous as you can imagine. I mean, normally I get stage fright anyway. I don't like speaking in front of crowds. It just drives me nuts. People say just calm down, don't worry about it. That's like saying to somebody that's afraid of snakes, oh, just don't worry about it. He won't bite you. It doesn't work. If you're afraid of snakes, you're just afraid of them.
Right.
If you're afraid of heights, you're just afraid of heights. It's not a logical thing. It's an emotional thing. So I get down there and I'm just as nervous as could be. And, I get into the green room about 11:30 and, Steve gets on at midnight. I'm in there and he talks from midnight till about 12:30. And he's talking about traffic jams in Utah and the weather everywhere, just giving truckers updates. And that's his thing. He goes, and we got the owner of Lubrication Specialties here. They got a product called Hot Shot Secret. And the thing that always amazed me about Steve is he's on the radio, like being on the radio for him is like breathing. It's effortless. I mean, doesn't even seem to try. He just does his thing. So we got the owner of Lubrication Specialties here. They got a product called Hot Shot Secret. We're going to get to him after the break. So we hit a 12:30 break. We come on and he starts asking questions about how we came up with the product, what it does. Started explaining, and I said, hey, if you have questions about oil, I'm an oil guy. I know a lot about lubricants. Feel free to call in. Well, all 8 lines lit up. So we're on the radio, probably till about 2 or 3, and Squirrel's pacing back and forth in the producer's booth. I'm just watching him walk back and forth.
He was tired.
Oh, my gosh. Finally, he comes in, He opens the door, bringing everybody up to speed. I know a lot of you we're on Facebook, so you must have seen that iHeartRadio has asked Steve to not do the show anymore.
Yeah.
After
June 1st would have been 25 years. I was kind of anticipating a big anniversary next year, but.
And you're like a legend in the industry. I mean, everybody knows Steve Sommers. So this was completely unexpected.
Had a great show Friday morning. Went home. Grandbaby was being dropped off because we watched the granddaughter every day. And about 8:30 a.m. got a phone call. That's it.
And that was it.
Here I sit today. I haven't had a good week, Chris.
No, it's been a suck week. Yeah, it's a suck week. So I asked Steve to come up and be on Facebook. At least we can get some closure and tell people, what happened and answer any questions that you've got. What would be really cool is if it's some way we can get the show back on the air. So we've got to brainstorm. So your dad started the show, then he went to XM.
He, overnight, 20 years, it got to him physically, his health. He came down with diabetes. He had Addison's disease, I think it was called, which...
That's thyroid, right?
I believe it is. So he said, the overnights, I can't do it anymore. And he was looking to retire. Then he found, the XM said, hey, we can give you like a 4 to 7 p.m. slot, which he jumped on that, and he did that for, I guess until he passed away.
Right.
And... So 4 to 7, he got to sleep at night. They built a studio in his home, and it was a whole lot easier. So,
oh yeah,
yeah. So we were on at the same time, but different times a day.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, excellent. And then you took over the show full time when he went to
2004.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before that, you were the weekend guy.
Yeah, I was doing 3 nights a week. His health was deteriorating. I was doing like Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, and then he would start Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night. So,
did you ever find out how many listeners were listening on the app versus terrestrial radio?
I know that they have the ability to track that, and yeah, there were big numbers on the app. I mean, they break it down to like you could have 2,800 people in any given 5 minutes. That's kind of the way they break it down. Gotcha. when it came to ratings at WLW, they give you ratings for Cincinnati,
Right.
but they couldn't give you ratings for all those truckers all over the country. So
Well, when I started, we were on XM because I remember getting calls from like Australia and Canada and places like that. So how long was it that you guys were on XM before iHeart pulled away?
boy, I've lost track of time. I'm saying it's probably been 6 or 7 years ago, maybe, that they pulled out.
Okay, that makes sense. I just remember getting emails and things and the orders, and again, we were kind of fresh into the whole business side of things, so trying to figure out how to get product over to Australia was quite a challenge. We're thinking,
Right,
we're
right.
calling the FedEx and UPS people. That was me and Levi figuring that out. So when we start thinking about a radio program, if there's anything you would do to change it up, if you're going to start fresh, what would a brand new Steve Sommers show look like?
Boy, I kind of got settled into a pattern over the years that I thought was working pretty successful. If I could continue that, because it was called a trucking show, and some people would kind of complain that, well, you're not doing enough trucking. Well, you can only talk about oil for so long.
Right.
You can only talk about the hours of service for so many hours per night, and whatever's in the news. So I kind of developed a news magazine. I focused a lot on weather for the guys that are out there, and if there's bad weather, I gave them updates every hour, and I got a lot of compliments over the years on my weather. I'd try to go into industry headlines. I'd scour all the different sources, what's going on today. Now, if something catches their attention and they wanted to call about it, we might stick on a trucking issue for hours.
Right.
If nobody hooks onto it, you got to find something that the people actually want to talk about. So I considered my show almost like a news magazine where we covered almost anything, whatever's going on in the news that people wanted to talk about.
So it would be more like a news magazine, but for the working class guy.
Well, you get a news update at the top of the hour where you get 10 seconds on this, 10 seconds on that, and it's just a headline.
Right.
Well, I would take that and I'd like to expand and give a whole lot more detail about what was going on with that particular subject, more than just a headline.
See, that's what the catch is for radio, because it is a dialogue going back and forth, where with a podcast or even a TV program, there's no way to ask a question, but wait, why didn't you address this? Where on a radio program, you do have the dialogue going back and forth, so there's an opportunity to expand if people are interested in that. So that's probably what the secret to the success of the show was.
I'd like to think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I kind of paved my own path and.
Nancy says, not a trucker, but always loved your show, especially the weather reports. I listen to the weather on TV, walk away wondering what the weather's going to be. With you, I'd understand the weather was doing and what was coming. Also, a great explanation of the news as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you.
And I think that's really important, is just getting the explanation of the news out there. Say, this is what's going on. Because I know, if you're doing a news broadcast, you got 30 minutes to get in and out. Or on radio, it's probably 5 minutes. So having 5 hours to unfold something and talk about it. And again, I've seen Steve print out all the pages, so he can get into all the details of it. And then during the break, he's sitting there reading through it, trying to make sure he's got everything.
You call that show prep. You prep. You have a lot more than you'll need, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
But every once in a while, you'll start getting to the end of that stack. And I always saved what I didn't use. Had that briefcase full of papers.
Yep.
So I can go back and say, you know what, we didn't get to this, we didn't get to that, and it will keep on going.
So show prep is the key to it, making
absolutely.
sure that you're prepared.
Yes.
Very good.
Also had a comment from Robert. It said he used to listen to your father when he worked at WNDE Radio in Indianapolis.
Windy and Indy, he called it. Windy and Indy.
Windy and Indy.
Yes.
9 to 5.
Okay, what about the life of a trucker? I mean, they definitely have a different lifestyle from everybody else. So things like when I was driving truck, you're dealing with, physical limitations because you're not out moving a lot. You're eating usually.
Sedentary lifestyle.
The food you're getting.
Lack of good food options.
Right.
I mean, most choices are fast food joints, even at the truck stops. We got a Popeyes, we got a Hardee's, got a Wendy's. Some of them have the Iron Skillet restaurant, where there's still some sit down, but I mean, even that, I don't know, is that a healthy diet or?
Well, I guess I'm thinking as far as Evergreen, the way he's using it. If you're talking about the lifestyle of a truck driver and the things that they have to do and the coping mechanisms that they come up with, just like the coping mechanisms of a soldier or policemen. They've got their own circle of things that they deal with that the rest of us don't. Truck drivers have their own circle of things they deal with. So if you were talking about that, that would be an evergreen thing.
It's constantly changing, constantly in the next 10 to 15, 20 years. I mean, we're looking at dramatic change with this talk of autonomous technology. I don't think it's going to be real soon, but some would say it is. It depends on if you ask Elon Musk or if you ask someone that's, trying to compete against him. But I mean, they're making progress pretty fast. The drivers, I mean, there may be more drivers, sitting and sleeping while the truck rolls, and they're just doing the front end and the back end, the last mile sort of things.
Right.
That's going to be changing.
One of the things that I was talking to one of the guys from Pilot Truck Stop, and he said the trend that they see is trying to get drivers home every night. And he said, so before, you'd pick up a load in Columbus and you might drive it all the way to Bakersfield, California, stopping along the way. He said, so now what they're trying to negotiate or figure out how to do, they're actually doing it. You drive it out to St. Louis.
Well, for any listeners or fans that I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to properly about a week ago, this was kind of a chance to do that. Thank you so much for the years of listening. Hopefully, I'll be back on the air. I think the last thing I posted on Facebook said, my grandfather taught me that patience is a virtue. Patience is a virtue. Patience, my friend, and we'll see where things go.
We'll work on it. It's going to be great. All right. Thank you. Everybody, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.